it takes a little while. It's not like you just go home and you fall asleep right away. It's like your mind's still racing everywhere. You're thinking about what could I have done in this situation, right?
Well, Cal, this week, great to see Logan Gilbert back out there. And one of the things that just, you kind of miss when he's out there is just, he's a totally different person out on the mound. And he's talked about Walter. And I'm kind of interested in the evolution of Walter. And when you first kind of saw it and kind of realized, okay, I'm sure it's different for all pitchers when they're on the mound, but Logan's got kind of a different approach to it.
Yeah, I think that all started back in college. So I guess that's his team. They all did that with him, and the whole Walter thing started. And then obviously got to pro ball, and you saw it when he started pitching. So yeah, very intense, very not a lot of funny business. On game days, wants to get after somebody. You can tell he's in the zone, and it's kind of how he approaches it. And some guys are like that, some guys aren't like that. So you learn that there's different personalities, there's different kind of ways to go about it, and he definitely errs on that side, more Kobe Bryant type.
What's it like the first time you catch a guy, because you've seen them but you don't know until they get out there? Has somebody really surprised you before?
Yeah, I think it's surprising with Logan just because he's so quiet, doesn't say a lot, very, goofy, very just, and so I think that's always surprising. And yeah, you just don't know. You don't, like I said, like Trent Thornton's another one who, when he gets on the mound, he's nothing like who he is, in the clubhouse. And that's just how it is, especially with pitchers. Some guys just, they need to be able to get in that zone, and some guys they need to feel, like it's normal, like they're themselves. So it's just different for every single guy, and I'd say those are two guys definitely that were surprising.
Is the Walter you see the same Walter now as it was when you first saw him in the minor leagues, or has he kind of evolved a little bit?
No, he's definitely evolved, just in the sense of he's I think he was a lot more headstrong back then on everything, and a little more, I don't know if discipline's the word, but he didn't like to change, who he was. And now, he understands that it's baseball and he has to do certain things. And he's evolved into, a really good pitcher and a really good, baseball mind. So it's good to see.
Do position players don't do that, do they? You don't kind of go to a different place?
No, I don't know. It's like, you do. You check in with yourself and you lock in at 7 o'clock. And I think throughout the day it's a slow build, right? You get, 6 hours from game time. You're obviously still pretty loose yourself. 3 hours, you check in, hour check in, like things like that. So I don't think it's as, maybe apparent as some of the pitchers, just because when you're a pitcher, you got that day and that time, and that's it. And that's sometimes it's once a week. So for a position player, it's every single day for 8 months, 9 months straight. So it's like, it's hard to have that every single time, in the sense of, being that crazy and that, crazy kind of focus, laser focus. You're obviously focused on the field, but it's a much different approach.
You've mentioned checking in with yourself throughout the day and whatnot a few times. How do you do that? Is that just, do you ask yourself a question? What do you do?
It's different with every guy. I think for me, it's just, it starts on the way to the field, check in with yourself a little bit. I think the big mistake some guys make is they try to lock in for too long and too early, and that's just how you burn yourself out. So, like I said, it's a slow build, and I'd say about when it gets to be about an hour before game time, that's when you're not as chit chatty anymore. You're starting to lock it in. You're starting to focus on the task at hand, and then obviously it's a build up into the game, and basically just you're mentally checking in with yourself, trying to get yourself ready, prepared, make sure that you're ready for everything you need to do that night, and everybody has their checklist, and it's going to be different. And, some guys it's shorter, some guys it's longer. So,
How did yours start big and you edited, or has it grown over time?
I'd say it's grown a little bit, just in the sense of because catching and the duties. So you're not just worried about, all right, my swing tonight. It's pitcher, game plan. Guys who are running, guys who don't like to run, dirt ball reads, and then obviously you take the hitting into it as well, and things like that. So it's a little bit more, just because obviously catchers, it comes with position. So, but yeah, you try to condense it, and you separate and compartmentalize the two, offense and defense. So,
What about checking out? How long does it take to kind of come down after a game from that?
it's hard. I have a hard time, after games. I like to just take it easy, and I like to relax, and just obviously every post game is different depending on what I need to do in the training room and weight room. But most of the time I like to just relax a little bit, maybe get in the tubs. I have a hard time eating afterwards, so okay. I have to wait to eat typically. Just because you're still in that mode, that game mode, and just taking a deep breath in the locker, and it takes a little while. It's not like you just go home and you fall asleep right away. It's like your mind's still racing everywhere. You're thinking about what could I have done in this situation, or you're always thinking in those kind of terms.
What about Logan? I remember, I think after the first couple of years we talked to him after games, he would still be there in the Walter, but it looks like he's not anymore. He looks like he's kind of learned to drop his super intensity.
Yeah, I mean, you learn over time, things that are going to help and things that are going to hurt, and you have to understand it's also a part of being a professional. So, he understands who he needs to be, and I think he's learned over time. He doesn't have to be, locked in, ready to go at 1:00 on start day, or the whole day. He's himself, and then he has a schedule, and he knows his times, and he knows when it's go time and when it's not. And it's important for a lot of guys to know, when they have to check in and get into that zone kind of.
It's interesting because I know that there's also kind of a pump up before the game sometimes. So it's like this throughout the day, not throughout the day, but
yeah, you want to try to just make it a slow, a slow, gradual incline, get into the game. Not getting too up, not getting too down. It's different for everybody, and like I said, some people it's a little more calming. Some people need a little more, fire. It's it's different for everybody, and everybody kind of learns, as you grow in the game, like what you need and what and when you need it.
It's very unique.
It is
very unique. Hey, let's talk about some topics that are going around baseball right now. I've kind of been seeing quite a bit about things that can impact hitters, and one has been, and they say it kind of, I don't think the strike zone it wasn't an intentional change, but there was a change with the umpire evaluations, and that has impacted the strike zone, and it's something that's been discovered of late. What are you seeing with that?
Yeah, I mean, they just, there was a buffer zone for umpires, and it was about, I can't remember the exact number, maybe 2 inches off and 2 inches in, buffer zone of, all right, that's, if you're in this zone, it's okay, if you miss, if you don't miss, kind of just like, this is a baseline. And then they lowered it this year, I want to say maybe to 0.75 inches in and out of the strike zone. And it's obviously a huge, drastic change. And so you've seen a lot more balls this year, I think, just in general. Umpires aren't calling as many strikes. They're trying to stay, locked in, and they're trying to just, trying to be almost perfect with that strike zone. And it's hard, especially when you got different, hitters, different sizes of people coming up to the plate, and you've had a zone, a 2 inch buffer for years, and now you're having to learn this on the fly. It's really hard, and Yeah, they didn't. I think the big issue is just, MLB didn't tell any of the players that this was going on, and we were not aware, and that was the issue. I think you've seen a lot. You saw the articles come out, and there's just no communication on their end about that, so that was a little frustrating at first.
Was that a thing that you were kind of seeing it, kind of saying, "Is this happening? Is this changed?" Or was it something? How did you see it?
Yeah, I was. I mean, I think back when we were in San Francisco. I was just really confused about what was going on, because I'm like, I just didn't understand. I was like, there's like, these umpires are really, really tight, and I know, and I always typically early in the year, to me, since I've been in the big leagues, umpires are a little tighter earlier, just because coming off spring training and that first start of the season, everybody's trying to be perfect, everybody's tightening up their zone, and then as the season goes on, you start to learn, more guys are giving more strikes, and so. But I ended up talking to some guys, Patrick Bailey and Hedges and Trevino from the Reds, and I'm like, hey, you guys seeing the same thing I'm seeing? Just because, like, we don't. They were all in agreement, like, we don't know what's going on. It's crazy. It's just you could see it plain as day. They just weren't calling, as many strikes, and the zones were super, super tight. So it was very eye-opening.
So what do you do after that? You understand what it is now. I mean, how does that impact you as a hitter? How does that impact you as a catcher?
It's not been a crazy big impact. Just like I said, just been a little tighter. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, a few more as a hitter, probably going to go your way. But, there's still some strikes that are being called balls and some balls that are being called strikes. So it's not crazy different, just a little more leaning towards, all right, umpires are going to lean a little more ball than they're a little more strike, just because they don't want to be wrong with that buffer zone. They don't want to get docked or, whatever it is, they want to be rated as high as they can and be the best that they can at their, position. So I'd say that's the big really difference. They'll still think they do a great job, and it's tough back there when guys are throwing that hard with that much movement.
Yeah, when you look at the percentages, it is tough. It's just the ones that really hurt are the ones that get the spotlight, and that kind of brings us to, where are you on implementation of Robo Umps? Could you see how would you feel about it if we saw what we saw in spring training, if that was instituted full time?
Yeah, I think my whole thing on the issue is, strikes have to be strikes. I think that's my biggest thing. And this year, seeing a lot of strikes being balled, and even that are pitches that aren't even on the edge, they're just fully in the zone being balled. It's like, it is, obviously the pitcher's always at the advantage, but they're also throwing it over a small little, basically box, and they, they should be, when it's over the plate, it should be a strike. So, to me, I've never been a fan of the Robo Umps, personally, but a full-time Robo Ump would never be good for anybody, I don't think. I think you definitely don't want that.
Yeah, you like the human element in the game.
I like the human element. I mean, if it's up to me, I would do no challenge system.
None.
At all.
Okay.
But
even though you were almost perfect in challenges this spring.
Yeah. So, I mean, it makes it fun. It's like, guys like seeing umpires like seeing, or fans like seeing umpires throw out managers and players. And it's part of the game. Like, it's just one of those things. It's baseball, and you want to keep some of that baseball part of it.
Are you thinking that when you're at the plate and you get a bad call and you're stepping back, muttering to yourself and perhaps to the umpire?
Yeah, maybe not at that time, but that's just how it goes. I mean, baseball's baseball. You like to think that they maybe even out, and maybe a strike was balled and a ball was striked. I like to think it evens out, but maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
Probably. There are baseball gods, after all. You do believe in the baseball gods, don't you?
There are, yes.
Okay. Is there is there a special way to not anger them?
Yes, there's lots of ways. You never take the game for granted. You never think you're bigger than the game, and you never ever call anybody out on the opposing teams, in the sense of, saying this guy stinks, this guy can't hit, this guy can't pitch. You ever do it, and you never say it out loud, because the next thing you know, they hit a home run, or they throw a CG and you're walking back. And you're like, why did I even say anything?
It's your fault.
Yep.
Have you ever lost a game like that for them?
There's been plenty of times where somebody said something they shouldn't have said, and that one person they said it about ends up winning them the game or has 4 hits or whatever it may be. It's crazy how often that happens.
Very real.
Yeah.
We'll do the superstition show another time.
Yeah.
Okay. Cal, thank you.
Thank you.